Hey everyone, welcome. So, this is an extra special episode we're bringing to you from the Hustle and Harmony podcast. My name is Alyssa, and I have my co host over
Ashley,
here. I don't know
hello.
where I'm pointing. Ashley, she's here, and we're so excited because we have a special guest today with us, Adrian. And Adrian and I go way, way back. We were just talking about this right before we hopped on. Back to chemistry at good old Penn State University. Go State. And so I'm so excited to have her on here today. And I'm so excited for everybody who's going to listen to this because it truly is going to be a treat. And so let me introduce Adrian because when you hear her bio, you're going to be like, oh, this is what we're talking about today. Okay. So Miss Adrian is a dedicated life coach who specializes in helping people pleasers recognize their worth and build self-trust. She empowers her clients to confidently set boundaries and engage authentically and honestly in their relationships. She deeply understands the compulsion to say yes despite personal reluctance, the anxiety over disappointing others, and the feeling of powerlessness that can dominate daily life. With over 3 years of experience and hundreds of coaching hours, she has empowered many people pleasers towards living lives that are authentic and truly their own. So,
Powerful.
welcome,
Love it.
Adrian. Yes, in case you couldn't tell from that, clearly today's topic is all about people pleasing. So, we're so excited. Are
Yeah.
It's
you
so fun to
excited
be
to be
here.
here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Yes,
looking
I'm so
forward
excited.
to it.
I can't wait.
And to have an expert on to give us the hot take,
I know.
even better, right?
Yes.
Even better.
And I say to everyone, and I got this, I think, from you, Adrian, and my face will still glitch, but it's okay, is that I am a recovering people pleaser. Like,
Yeah,
so even though we go way back, like we've been friends on social media for a long time, and then I started seeing you transition into like talking about people pleasing. And I was like, oh, she's speaking my language because this is totally something that I deal with. And I've really gotten so much out of the things that you share on social media. So even though you've never personally coached me, you've been coaching me through your
love it.
stories and your reels. And I've just like loved learning from you. So that's why I'm so
Wow.
excited to
Yeah,
have
and I would just love to give a little plug. I started following you a couple weeks ago once Alyssa and I talked about having you on, and
Yep.
you have really great content out there for,
Thank you.
anyone that follows you, right? So I,
Thanks.
I
It's
would
so fun.
I would love to give that plug. It's super helpful.
Thank
you.
And
you.
thanks for being here
Yes.
today.
Yeah, I love it. I'm so excited. It is like my own journey with people pleasing. So I really just share a lot of like what I've experienced and how it's affected me. Cause I'm like, I can't be the only one who is going through this and who's experienced this or who struggles with this. So just like willing to share it and be a little bit vulnerable. And it's so fun.
Yeah.
I love it. It is so fun.
Yes. Well,
And
I
that's
love
really
that.
the intention of, I think, this podcast and why it's great to have you on is we're really just speaking about our own experiences with all these things that we're struggling with in a silo. And it's like, okay, we can't be the only ones. We know there's people out there who want to hear about this stuff too. So they're
Mhm.
not thinking they're going crazy in their mind, right? So going to be really awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just want to tell our listeners, like, as we were prepping for this and I was sending Adrian some things to think about, I was like thinking of who I know, who I can't wait to send this episode to. Like, I'm
So
just going to
fun.
be like sending it out to some of my friends who I know have told me that this is something that they deal with. And so, as you're listening, if you are someone who deals with this, you know someone who deals with this, please share, 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 because I guarantee you this
Yeah.
conversation is going to be so good. All right, so let's dive right into this,
Yes.
okay? So, first, what
Okay.
I want to know from you, Adrian, is what made you realize that you were even a people pleaser and how did it show up in your everyday life? Like, what were the things that you know you were doing that were definitely people pleasing behavior?
Yeah, I think so. One of the main things that I think I first noticed was that I could not be settled if I thought someone was mad or upset with me, or let's say I had to, like, was forced to, because that was really the only way I was saying no at the time. I had to say no to something like, I'm so sorry I can't come, but I have, a meeting or something scheduled at that time. The guilt and the like horrible feelings that I felt on the inside after doing that was so unsettling. And the amount of like external validation I was seeking to be like from the other person, like, I'm so sorry. I needed them to say, like, it's fine, it's not a big deal. If they didn't, I was spiraling. Like, I just could not handle that discomfort. And I noticed how much energy it was just like sucking out of my daily life or the amount of like headspace it took up. So it was very distracting just in general, like emotionally, but mentally as well. I felt like I couldn't be fully present in a lot of the things I was doing because I was just like, oh my gosh, I hope they're not mad. Are they good? Maybe I should send another message to check in. Like maybe I should just confirm or say like I like thank you so much, but like, I really can't. I really wanted to, but I can't. So that was like one of the like the noticing for me.
Yeah.
I was just like, this is a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you
This is
know that it was people pleasing? Like, did you have a name for it?
That's a great
Or
question. I don't think I did what like when I was younger, middle school, high school, college. I think around college I was like, "Oh, I thought this could be people pleasing." But even then I didn't know that it was like a coping mechanism, that it was part of a trauma response, that it was anything that could be like affecting me from previous years. I just sort of thought like
oh wow.
I just don't like to say I just don't like conflict. I just like to be nice. I'm just
Yeah.
super nice, is what I would think in my head often. Like, I'm just really nice, you know? And I just don't like people to be mad at me. I don't know anyone who does. So
Yeah.
that's very
That's
normal, right?
yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
justifying it, like, it's normal. No one likes to be not liked. So,
Yeah. No, that makes total
but
sense.
it was becoming an issue, which is the people pleaser part where it starts to really negatively affect you. I'm like, I was neglecting myself. I was exhausted. I was overcommitted for so many things. I was really dishonest in my relationships. I couldn't tell anyone how I actually felt, or I couldn't
Mhm.
say, like, oh no, like I don't agree with that, or I don't actually want to go to watch that movie or eat that food. I couldn't even be honest with those types of things. I was just like, sure, yeah, that's great. Sure, yeah, I love it. Great, you know. It was
Yeah, so
terrible.
what
It
was
was so
it?
terrible.
What was it that kind of set you over the edge or made you make the decision to do something different, to take a different approach?
I think so. It was interesting. I was listening to this podcast and I heard the woman on the podcast say something like, you get a choice. Like, you get to decide how you want to think about that or how you want to feel about that. And I had never heard that in my whole life. Like, I came from a very, like my mom was very like victim minded. So like everything was happening to her. Everything was like circumstances dictated how I was going to feel. Like I should feel bad because something bad happened. I should feel happy because something happy happened. And it was the first time I ever heard that I could decide, like think about the situation and be like, oh, that's really interesting. I don't know if I actually feel sad about that. So like I could decide how I wanted to feel, and that was maybe like 5 years ago. And my mind exploded with that thought that I wasn't like a victim to my circumstances and that I had the power to like decide how I wanted to think or feel about something. And it was like things were going off. I was like, what is happening? This is
Yes.
unbelievable. Like, earth shattering. And so it
Yeah.
kind of changed from there. I was like, oh, wait a second.
Yeah.
I
It's
don't,
kind of like an epiphany that you had
Yeah.
with yourself.
yes.
That's
Yeah.
very common. I think understanding that similar to me, not in terms of people pleasing, but that shift out of victimhood, right? Of
Yes.
Yeah.
like, I don't have to choose, like, my circumstances don't have to dictate how I am or showing up in the world. Like, I can make a
Yes.
change, right? To experience something
Totally.
else. And so it applies to so many things, right? Which I think is
Yes.
really cool to share.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know for me too, like personally, I'm definitely like, oh, from childhood, I've been a people pleaser
Hmm.
and never realized that that was like a trauma response to anything. Never realized that. I just thought that
Oh.
that was just how it was built. And it's not even that I don't like conflict. I don't like conflict, but I'm not afraid of conflict, which probably
Hmm.
makes us a little bit different. Like if we need to have a confrontational conversation, I'm willing to have that in a very
Sure.
nice way. But
Sure.
For me, the one thing that really stood out to me right out of college, had my first job, and it was actually I needed to get my appendix out.
Mm.
And I felt horrible calling in sick to work. And I
Mm,
felt like I needed to over explain, like calling off sick. Have any of you ever like dealt with this
for
with me? Where,
sure.
like I felt like I couldn't just call and be like, "Hi, this is Liz O'Neill. I'm not going to be in today." The end, because you get
Right.
sick days. Nope, that
Sure.
wasn't me. I was like, "Hey, it's Alyssa. I'm not going to be there, and here's why." Da-da-da-da-da. Like I needed them to understand that I wasn't just playing them off. And then
Yeah.
a friend of mine was like, I said, "Oh my gosh, I have to call into work again tomorrow and tell them I'm not going to be there." And she's like, "Okay, you have sick time, right?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah." And she's like, "Okay, why do you feel this way?" And I was like, "Well, because I feel like I'm letting them down because I can't be there." And
Mm,
she's like, "You got your appendix out. Like, this is a legitimate reason to
right.
not be there. I don't think anyone's going to be disappointed in you." And I was just like, "Oh." She's like, "I just
Mm.
call in sick and I'm like, hey, I won't be there today. Bye." Like, wow,
What?
that sounds so much easier than what I've been doing. So,
Yes.
kind of like a weird way to realize it, but that was definitely,
Totally. I think that's a big part with people pleasing is like we feel this weighty responsibility for adults' feelings when they're not, it's like not our job. Like you just are supposed to let adults be adults.
right.
But we have this idea that like it's my job. Like I need to make sure they're fine. What are you gonna do? Work all the things from the hospital, right? Like I
Yeah,
need to make sure that work is okay without me. Like they'll be good.
they'll be
It's
fine.
fine. It's their job to figure out how to do that without you, right?
Right.
Like
Exactly.
it's
Which
wild.
So that brings up a good point because it's like, okay, so let's get into like the impact of people pleasing because like you were
Mhm.
saying, you were exhausted, you were like it does kind of take its toll on you mentally and in relationships because
Sure.
you can show up very inauthentically in a relationship when you're a people pleasing. And I have a
Yeah.
clear example of this more recently in my life. But so for you or like for people maybe you coach, how do you feel like people pleasing affects our ability to like live out our own dreams or even hear our own desires? Like how do you
Sure.
think it impacts that?
I think with people pleasing, like the negative impact of people pleasing is that there's no room for your feelings. Like you are so hyper vigilant and attentive to everyone else to the extent where you actually neglect your own feelings, needs, whatever. And so you really, there's no space for your dreams. You're too busy helping everyone else achieve theirs, or there's no space for your feelings because you're like very hyper vigilant and assisting everyone else in feeling okay and being comforted. And so you can't have negative feelings because you're helping everyone else not have their negative feelings so that you can feel fine. So I really think people pleasers are stuck in this like in the moment without the ability to dream because they've created no space for what they need or even what they want. There's no, they never ask themselves, like, what do I want? It's always what do they need? How can I help? What would best be assisted for them? It's
Right.
very a lot of the people that I coach feel so guilty asking for what they want. They're like, that feels so selfish. That
Hmm.
feels so self-centered. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, how are you going to get what you need if you don't even know what you need? Like, you wouldn't
Right.
be able to help yourself. You're literally drowning and you're like, I'm good. I'm good. I'm like, you're not, you're actually not good. So
That's
you're
so,
not.
yeah.
Oh my
I
So
gosh.
yeah, there's no
Uh,
space for that.
Yeah, how do you maybe recommend to your, to those you coach? Because I feel like I suffer from this a little bit as well, right? Like distinguishing people pleasing from just being a good, kind-hearted person trying to do the good thing, right? Like, yeah, of course I want to help you out. Of course I want to, do this for you if you ask and show up in this way. So how do you know or learn how to distinguish the line between
Mhm.
those two things?
Love this question. I always look at like the motive. Like, what's the motive? Are you being kind just because you genuinely want to be kind? Or are you being kind because you're afraid if you're not kind, there's going to be like a negative consequence or someone's going to be upset or, um, Like there's going to be something negative impacting you, so you feel the obligation to feel kind. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah,
So like, do
absolutely.
you
That's so
like
so simple.
like
That is such an easy way to
what's
think
the
about
motive?
that.
What's the motive
Yeah.
and what's your driver? Is it out of obligation, right? I always like to say like what's the feeling? Do you feel obligated or do you just feel like desire to assist?
Hmm.
There's a difference in how you're going to feel on your inside. If you feel obligated, it feels very weighty. There's usually dread around it. There's usually like some resistance on your insides. Versus if you're just like, I want to do that. I would love to assist them because I love that person or they need help or I'm great at that. That feels like light. That feels exciting. That feels very different than wanting to do that out of fear or
Yeah.
obligation.
Yeah.
So I usually say like, what's the motive? And then asking like, do you want to? And do you have the capacity? So like you may want to help. I love to help people. But if I have 17 things on the calendar, like what is this? Maysember, whatever they're calling it. I'm like, oh my gosh, all the like back to like end of school stuff. I'm like, if I have 17 things on the calendar, it's actually not in my best interest or the best interest of my family to say yes, even though I want to. Does that
Yeah.
make sense? Because it's going to negatively impact me and my family. And I'm no longer willing to allow that to negatively impact me because I did that for 30 some years and that felt horrible. And I know the consequences of that, that I'm like, although I want to, I'm not willing to do that anymore. So, like, I'll either have to reschedule, I'll have to assist in a different way or at a different time. But right now, it's not great for me. So I
Right.
have to say no.
Yeah,
I
super
love
helpful.
that.
I think
I
that is
love I
really
love the
simple to
motive.
understand.
Yeah. Like I've never heard it explained like do you feel it out of you need to do
Hmm.
it because of obligation or because you have a desire to help? Because when I think of things that I've said yes to that I know that I shouldn't have, it was definitely out of obligation and not even like it was more out of obligation of like if I don't do this, they're going to think that I'm not helpful. Like not,
Mhm.
do you know what I
I'm a bad
mean?
person.
Yeah, like I'm a bad person and I don't want anyone to think I'm a bad person.
Right.
Like I want
Yes.
them to be like, well, Alyssa didn't do this and we asked her, and then I don't want people to think badly of me. So it's not even necessarily out of obligation to a specific person. It's more almost out of an obligation to myself and how I think people perceive my character, which is
Yes.
a problem. So,
Which is like another thing with people pleasing, right? Is like I think we try to do so much to earn our worth. Like we really tie our productivity to our worth
yeah,
instead of just knowing that like we just have like innate worth simply because we exist. Like humans simply are just worthy because they're alive and living and present. Like your kids don't get more worthy, right? You weren't like, oh my gosh, they're so not worthy because they're just a baby. Like they don't do anything, you know? They'll get more worthy once they can hold their head up. That would be great. And once they can use words and tell me what they need. Like, no, they're like the instant you meet them, you're like, they are so worthy of love and protection and all the things. And the same thing is true. Your whole, like the entire life. It's not like, you sit on the couch and you're less worthy. You simply have worth because you exist and no other thing.
right.
So when we're tying it to like they're going to think bad things about me or I'm not going to be seen as a certain thing, it's usually like our productivity or like what we can give to others we're saying is really tied to our character. And it's
Yeah,
not. It doesn't define us in any way.
right.
And we don't get to control what others think about us anyway, which is really hard. I really
So
wish I
hard.
could.
Yeah.
Oh, I wish I
So
could.
hard, so hard. Okay, so that brings up a good point. What's like the first boundary that, like, once you realized, okay, like I'm a people pleaser, this is a problem. What
Mhm.
was like the first big boundary you set that you know, I don't
That
know.
was,
Can
yeah.
recommend. Like, is there a common first one that you recommend to
Yeah,
newly recovering people pleasers?
people
I
pleaser.
think I like for when I was first starting, I think I was like, start small. Start small. Like, start being honest in really small things. Start to start to say like, oh, I don't really love that place. Could we eat somewhere else? And my insides, my heart would literally be pounding just to see something like that. I'd be like, oh my gosh, they're gonna hate me. They're gonna think like, what? We've eaten here 1,000 times. I'm like, yep, but I haven't liked it any time. But like, so just start small. Like, I don't, that time doesn't work great. Could we do a different time? Or like simple things I feel like most other people just see as normal and natural social interactions. People pleasers are like panicked for small things like that.
Yeah.
And it's really because I think it starts to like assist our preferences and our wants and our needs. And that just feels uncomfortable in general. We're not used to having any spotlight whatsoever. And so to like verbally vocalize that you have a preference for something else feels like so
Yeah.
I always tell my clients, like, just start small. Just
Mhm.
start being honest because that, like, ultimately, I think all people pleasers want really deep, connected relationships. Like, we're lonely because no one really knows us. We're not honest for anything. So, like, how do people get to know you if you're not honest about your wants, your needs, your true feelings? So I think
That
a
was
lot
deep.
of,
Sorry, I just have to really, call that out. No, I love that, right? Um, so I just wanted to pause because I'm like, wow, that was really profound, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think, right, like most humans, we just want this like deep connected relationships with people. But I think there is a lot of loneliness. You're just not known at all because you've been hiding and you've been focused on everyone else. So if you're constantly like, what do you need? How can I help? Blah, blah, blah. Then people see you as not having needs and they sometimes don't even ask, like, what do you need? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're so good at being like, I'm great. What do you need? I would love to help. Let me assist, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah.
Oh,
Like
she's so go
energy.
with the flow because,
Yes.
Yeah.
the
On
perception
the
that you give off.
inside,
Yeah.
yes. And you're like, not again.
Yeah.
Not
Or
this
Yeah.
silly
like, I
again.
know people have said this to me. Oh, how do you do it all? Like, you make it look so easy. And I'm like, I'm dying. Like, I'm like,
Drowning.
literally, is my head
Drowning.
even above water? I'm drowning right now.
Mhm.
Like, but from the outside, and this is something that I think in probably, I don't know, something, I swear something happens when you're in your 30s where you just really have this desire to
Mhm.
start living in your true authentic self. And it's
Yep.
like, so like in years or in earlier years, it was a lot easier to kind of keep who I authentically was below the surface,
Sure.
people please. But you start to like gain this wisdom and it makes it so much harder to continue that pattern, which is a good
Yeah.
thing because it's definitely not something that you should continue. But people would just say to me like, oh my gosh, you look like you have it all together. And I'm like, I am a hot mess express coming through. Like, choo choo, here come the O'Neills.
Look
That's
out.
what I feel like.
Yeah,
It's just,
and I think when you do this for so long, it built up not only, of course, for yourself, you don't even know yourself because you're so used to just appeasing everyone else,
Yep.
but also it builds up so much resentment towards the people in your life that you're constantly trying to people please,
Yes.
which is
yeah,
really hurtful, like even for you as the people pleaser, because it's like I
Yes.
love you, but I am feeling so resentful towards you because you have no
Totally.
idea how much I'm putting out there and I'm not, doing this for myself. And
Yes.
it's creating so much friction inside of me that I'm not even acknowledging. And so
Totally.
it just has, I think, such a big impact, not only on yourself, but the relationships and
Sure.
stuff too, which I know we kind of touched on, but
a
Yeah.
word just came in my brain, like a functioning people pleaser. Like
Hmm.
you just live in the function of people pleasing. It's just like someone who's like
Yep.
a functioning alcoholic. Like,
Yep.
they're an alcoholic under the surface, but from the outside, it looks like they still are driving a car all the time and they're going to work and they're doing all the
Yes.
things. But like
Mhm.
below the surface, behind the curtain, that's not really what's going on. And I
Struggling.
think
Yes.
sometimes we've been functioning like that for so long that it just is a pattern that we continue until one day
Yeah.
we decide that
And
we
you
can
don't
overdo it.
realize that it's a problem. So it's like,
Mhm.
you're not happy with it.
Yeah.
You don't actually realize that it's a problem. And
Hmm.
truly, you shouldn't have to live that way.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like it's not normal or, right to
Yeah.
have to function in that way.
Right.
Totally. It's
Absolutely.
very like self-isolating too, because it's like a cycle of like You want to be connected to people, so you viciously people please, right? Because you're like, I want this connection. And that actually ends up making you feel very resentful. And then you isolate because you're like, I'm so annoyed, or like, I feel so used, or whatever it is. So then you don't like pursue deeper connection with that person. And it's not them doing the thing, it's you doing the isolation because you're just like, I don't want to be around them right now because I feel very used when I'm with them. So you're like isolating even though you
Yeah.
want connection. It is wild.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's really complex when you look at it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you
absolutely.
feel like you said you made the shift around 5 years ago,
Mhm.
or like that's kind of when you realized and you started small a little bit. How did that evolution look? Can you kind of walk us through like maybe a little bit,
Yeah.
high level highlights, where you started and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. So I started small. I started listening to some podcasts. I started going to therapy. I got myself a coach, and I was like, this was like all in the span of like a couple months. I was just like, I'm all in. Like that, the thought made my brain explode. And it's like when the glass shatters, like you start seeing it everywhere. And I was just like allowing myself to be really aware of like, okay, let's just take a look. Let's just get really curious about, I didn't want to beat myself up. I didn't want to shame myself. I just want to be like, let's just look at what we're doing and how we're feeling. Let's just look at it. And it was everywhere. And I think so I started doing all those things. That was really helpful. And then I started setting boundaries with family, like boundaries that I was like, this is like socially normal, right? Like, could you call or text me and wait for a response before you come over at bedtime and rile the kids up and like make it difficult for me to put them back to bed? Like, and the hard part with that was my family responded really poorly.
Oh.
So they were like, so you don't want to see us at all? I'm like, no, 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 no. I do. I actually want to see you a lot, which is why I'm trying to tell you, like, where's best for us. Because if we're going to be in a mutual relationship, it has to be good for you and me. It can't just be good for you anymore because I'm not willing to people please in this relationship anymore. And I want connection with you and I want to see you. So, like, this would be the best time to do that. So I did that a lot with family. That did not go well. So
Mhm.
that was hard. And I think that's one of the things maybe people don't talk about often is like setting boundaries. It feels so great. It doesn't feel great. Like for me, it actually didn't feel great for a while. So it felt scary. It felt guilty. It felt selfish. But in the like, I knew, right, like knowledge wise, that these are appropriate. Like, this is part of becoming like an autonomous adult. This is part of keeping my kids happy, healthy, and safe. Like, this is all part of that is setting socially, I would say socially acceptable boundaries in families. Um, and then I just started to like notice how that changed my relationship with my family, with my husband, my kids. I think the biggest thing with my kids was I noticed that as a people pleaser, I could not handle big emotions. So my kids would have these big, right, negative emotions. Maybe they would have like a tantrum, or maybe just something would make them upset because they didn't have the words to explain.
Mhm.
And I was emotionally shutting them down because I didn't have the skills to take care of myself to feel okay when the negative emotions were coming up. So that was one of the things that I loved about like my recovery process is like redeeming the connection with my kids from being this place where they had no space, which is sort of how I grew up, like no space for their emotions. Emotions were too big, keep them small, stay happy, be joyful all the time. And that's just not normal life.
Mhm.
So allowing my kids to have big emotions because I had created the skills to cope and comfort and take care of myself, that I was just like, yeah, let that out. Tell me exactly how you feel. Like that feels so, that must have felt terrible. And being able to be like with them in the big emotions instead of being like, it's too much. Like go to your room or like we can't talk about this right now. So like redeeming that connection with my kids has been such a beautiful um change that I've noticed that's been really helpful and completely worth all the like difficult parts of
Yeah.
setting boundaries. Is like setting boundaries with myself. Is like you can handle this. Like this is okay. This is not too much.
Yeah.
This is completely
Yeah.
normal.
Yeah.
They're acting like kids, and this is great. So I
Yeah.
think there's been so many big changes, but it started off rough, like
Yeah.
really rough
It
and
is so rough.
scary.
It is rough. And I think too, what can happen, I had a very similar situation. It's really hard to set boundaries with family. It's
Mhm,
really hard because
mhm,
they probably know you at the most intimate level outside of
mhm.
anyone else. And if you've been people pleasing for so long, they kind of take however you were when you were people pleasing as that being your personality,
Sure.
but it's not because you were really hiding like who you authentically are by not
Yes.
expressing your opinion or whatever. And so I think sometimes what can happen is when it's not received well, it can
Hmm.
almost like for me personally, it I took steps backwards then.
Yeah.
Because then I was like, oh my gosh, I must really be a bad person. Because
Mm,
clearly if I was supposed to set this boundary and like they would have received it better was like my
hmm.
initial thought
Oh,
until
that's
I
so
like
good.
confided in my pastor and he was like, you are a good person. You're a good Christian. Like, please
Right.
stop. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, well, thanks for like telling me that because everyone else is making me feel like I'm like
Mm,
horrible. And I think too, what can happen is you can like tell someone else like, "Oh, I've set this new boundary." And if they're not like, "Oh my gosh, that's great." They'll be like,
yeah.
"Well, was it really that bad what they were doing?" Like,
Yes.
here's a boundary I had to set, very similar to yours, just not the time of day. There would be family who would just pop in my house any time of the day. Just
Mm-mm.
pop by. I'm just
Mm-mm.
popping in. I'm bringing you this, or I want to say hi to the kids in the summertime. And it's like, awesome, but here's what we need to understand. I work from home, okay?
Mhm.
And you never know when I'm working. I also am home with my kids in the summer, and I don't know about you guys, but that means that I could take a shower at any point in the day. It doesn't
Yep.
happen at 7 a.m. Okay, it might
Yep.
happen at 12, it might happen at 11. I don't know when it's going to happen. It depends on how the day goes.
Sure.
I will shower though, like I will make sure I get it in. I just don't know what time it's going to happen. And so like one time I had a family member stop by and I was in the shower and I could hear my girls talking to somebody. And I have a little bit of post-traumatic stress
They're
from like a
nearby.
bad relationship where someone actually
Mm.
broke into my parents' house
Oh
when
my
I was
gosh.
in a bad relationship. So I have this like kind of PTSD from that experience. So now I'm
Sure.
like naked in the shower. I can hear a voice. I have no idea who my kids are talking to.
That's scary for anyone.
Right. Like I was
Yeah.
just like, this is not. And like when I got out of the shower, the person was like sitting at my kitchen table, like
Oh,
everything was great. And I'm like, this is not great. I feel horrible. I'm like,
yes.
this is not good. And
Yes.
when I voiced my opinion, it was just like, listen, I don't care if you want to stop by. Can you just call or text first? Oh,
Sure.
well, Alyssa doesn't want me to come to the house anymore.
Yeah.
Yep, nope,
Hmm.
that's actually not at all what I said.
Mhm.
Thanks for twisting it into that. That's not it.
You're
But it can
making it
make it,
sound.
yeah, it makes it so hard then because you
Yeah.
do have that sense of guilt about like setting the boundary. So
Hmm.
I think my advice personally too to anybody who's like, oh my gosh, this is me. Now I have to start setting boundaries. Like start small, but expect there to be
Yeah.
pushback.
Yeah.
Expect the pushback because it's for sure going to come. But I think it's important to surround yourself with other people who've maybe been through it or get a coach,
Yeah.
right? Like having a coach or someone who you can confide in who's going to be like,
Yeah.
nope, you're on the right path. Stay with it.
Hmm.
Stay with it. I think that's so important.
For sure. I think like the support is key because you know how like you went to your pastor and you're just like, this weird? And they're like, that's weird. Like you are being normal, right?
Right.
That's a weird reaction. You are being perfectly fine. I think that part is super helpful. And also, I notice like it is so much easier to set boundaries with people who are healthy. So, like when I set boundaries
Mm.
with people who I would consider are like healthy or um, I would say like healthier individuals, it's easy. It is so easy. I'm like, could you do that? Sure, no problem. It is the most, there is zero drama around it because there's no like personal attachment. And there's this thing, if you guys haven't read the book Boundaries, it is incredible. But they talk about how boundaries are like help you distinguish what's your property and what's not, right? So like because what happens on my property is my responsibility, but what happens on my neighbor's property is their responsibility. So if there's no boundary line, I don't actually know what I'm responsible for or what I'm not. And the boundary is like the gate that shows people where to enter and where to exit, right? It's showing them how to connect with me and it's showing them how not to connect with me. Like you were saying, I prefer you to text or call to let me know you're coming. That is you actually saying, I want connection with you. I want you to come to my home. This is the way that I want you to do it. Enter through this gate right here. This is the way I want you to do that. I'm happy that you're here. I love that you come. I just need to not be naked when you come. I
Right.
need to make sure I am clothed
Yes.
and ready for you to come. I don't think that's asking too much. I
It's
think that would
perfectly
be normal.
reasonable when you
Yeah,
say
I
it that
thought so
way.
too, but
Yeah.
very reasonable.
Yeah.
So, but when I set them with healthy people, it's easy. They are so like, yeah, that sounds great. Sure. They say, I'm so sorry. I didn't know that made you feel that way. I don't want to make you feel that way. Let's do it that way instead. It is the most life-giving, like sigh of relief.
hmm
Setting boundaries with someone who does not have like a personal tie or feel attacked when
hmm
you set a boundary. And I think if more people understood that it is a way to create actually deeper connection with someone, like, I actually want you in my life, which is why I'm telling you how to interact with me. I want you here more. It just
Because
has
you
to
don't
be
want to be
here.
resentful if they're doing it the right.
Yes. Yeah, it just
You
has
want
to
it
be
to be a
mutual.
healthy relationship or that
Yes.
like you said.
Yes.
I never thought about it that way. So that's a really interesting point, in terms of I'm setting this boundary to have a deeper connection with you.
Yeah, I
So
want
we
you
can have a
here.
deeper relationship.
It just
So
can't only feel good for you.
yeah. And I think that's a good point that you made in terms of the healthy person and the way that they receive a boundary, because it relates to some other points that we've made in past episodes, Alyssa, right? Even around sharing our thoughts or our dreams. Like when you do it with someone who is of a particular mindset or um, personality maybe, whatever the case may be, the way that they receive it is because of
Mhm.
their own stuff. It's
Totally.
not because of you. And so I
Yes.
think across the board, this is becoming a theme, I think, right? In terms of how people respond to you or what you're triggering
Mhm.
in them, learning that it's not you.
Yeah,
It's not because of who you are or how you are or the type of person that you are. It's all based on their situation and like learning to
sure.
accept that.
Sure. And I know with me, like people have set boundaries, and I know that there have been times where I'm like, ooh, like I felt maybe hurt by it. And I would say, like, I am all for it. Like I will make sure that I respect that. But I need like a little time to adjust to that because it's new and it's not how we've done it in the past. And I do like I am feeling some feelings and I need to just like figure out why I'm feeling that. And oftentimes it is my stuff. It's
hmm
like I feel like maybe rejection if they're saying like we can only meet this day instead of this day. And I think that's just my own junk that's coming up. Then I'm like, okay, they're saying this not because they're trying to reject me, right? They're actually saying this because they want to see me. It's just that this is like a preferable day, time, whatever it is. But I think you're absolutely right. I think it's all like you have to look internal when you have this maybe like hurtful response to something to be like, I think that's on me. I don't think they're purposefully, right? Like trying to get me. I
Right.
think it just brings up my old junk. And I'm like, we're not over that. That's okay. That's just like a pain point, right? That still needs to be worked on, and that's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that raises a thought in terms of, so when you find yourself in a moment either on the receiving end of a boundary or placing one, or you identify a new way in which you're people pleasing that you want to adjust, is there a common affirmation or practice or something, some
Mm.
tool that you encourage people to use in any given moment when they're feeling a certain type of way to move through it quickly?
Good thought. So like if let's say I'm encouraging someone to set a boundary, I always tell them it's going to feel uncomfortable and that's normal. Like I think people sense like it's uncomfortable, this is bad or wrong. And I'm like, no, 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 no. You're just doing something new. And doing something new always feels uncomfortable. So the discomfort isn't a reason to not set the boundary. It probably indicates you're doing like the right thing setting the boundary. So like notice the discomfort is like usually what I say, and don't make it mean anything. It's just a feeling. So it
Right.
doesn't mean you're doing the wrong thing, anything like that. And then I usually say to myself, so like I'm willing to feel discomfort in order to, and then I like fill in the blank of like in order to make sure that my home is always a safe, peaceful place for me. So like I'm willing to feel the discomfort of telling someone like you can't come past 8:30 or I need you to call or text before you do that. And I'm willing to feel the discomfort, how that's going to feel in the relationship to make sure that my home always feels like a peaceful place to me and my family. Because if I don't have a peaceful place there, I don't know where I would have one. So that has to be something that's like safe for us, right?
Yeah.
So I'm willing to feel that in order to, and then I fill in whatever like my end goal is
Yeah.
in order to have a more connected relationship, have a whatever.
Yeah.
Really helpful.
I think one question too that I think of that we didn't previously talk about
Yeah,
is so when you have someone who sets a boundary with someone and it's not well received and it's just continually maybe, uncomfortable as they're attempting to set boundaries with that person, is there anything you do in your coaching to kind of help the person work through that? Because I think sometimes it's also you have to understand that when you set a boundary continually with someone who isn't going to accept it, there's going to be a change in the relationship, right?
for
So
sure.
how do you deal with those like potential changes in relationship or maybe teach your clients how to do that?
That's a great question. So I think a lot of times you have evidence, right? Like we've asked them 4 times and it's the same thing. Like they're just not willing to adhere to the boundaries. They're not willing to accept the boundaries or maybe even acknowledge that they've been set. Like, oh, I forgot. Or like, I didn't think you actually meant it. Or like they'll say things like that. And I'm like, oh, no, no, no. No, I meant that. Right. Is my personal response is to actually withdraw from the relationship. So, like, you don't get access to me and my people then if you're unwilling to adhere to a boundary that I need in place in order to like have a mutual connected relationship with you, or in order to feel safe and protected in my home, or to there's a lot of things. So, I basically then start to limit access with them. Like,
Yeah.
you don't get to access me if you're unwilling to do it in like the proper way. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think it's an important question, and I wanted you to touch on that because I
Yeah.
feel the same way you feel. I
Hmm.
feel like then access needs to become limited because it's a lack
Sure.
of respect. Like it
Totally.
really is a lack of respect. And like we were saying at the beginning of this, as humans, we're all worthy, right? And we're
Hmm.
all worthy of respect. And respect is something that truly is earned to a point, right? And
Yeah.
when you're going to just continue to disregard someone's like upfront and honest feelings, it's
Hmm.
it's a level of disrespect. And when you know your worth,
Yeah.
it's not something that you have to continue to tolerate. And there
Totally.
might be people in your life who make you feel like, oh no, you should keep it, just keep trying, keep
They're
trying.
family. They're
Yes, they're
family.
family. Like, no, listen, like it's okay if it gets to a point where you're like, listen, I've tried my heart out and
Yeah.
it keeps coming back to the same thing.
Yeah.
I just want to give other people encouragement that it does not, you're not a bad person for
Mm-mm.
limiting access. You're actually doing what's right because
Mm-hmm.
even when it comes to like, one of my therapists told me one time, like, your four walls of your house are
Yeah.
the most important walls.
Yeah.
And if whatever's happening is impeding on those four walls, then you need to stand your ground because
For
you
sure.
are creating that safe space for the people
Yeah.
within your four walls. And
Totally.
so I just think that that's so important that people feel like, oh, okay, it's okay. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
okay to do
For
that.
sure.
Don't feel bad about that.
I
yeah.
think it's almost like an act of self-harm if you let people completely like over and over like overthrow your boundary.
Yeah.
It's just like self-neglect and self-harm. And I always like to think about it if people have kids, I'm always like, would you let your kid, like someone slap your kid in the face and then them just say like, oh, it's okay. And then they slap your kid in the face and you're like, oh, it's fine. Like he didn't mean to do it. And I'm like, he's winding up, like he's doing it again. Like you wouldn't tell your kid to just handle
Right.
it. It's fine.
Yeah.
Their
Your
family.
family.
Yeah, just let them slap you. It's family. That's what we do. I'm like, absolutely not, right? You would say, stop that. You would say no. You would make sure that you remove them from the situation so that that stops happening to them, right? Or else what? Like what's the other what's the other end game? Is they get hurt over and over and over and over. And the same is true for you.
Yeah, I love that. All right. Well, I know we're getting close to our time, so I want to be respectful of your time, Adrian, because we're so excited that
Yeah.
we have had you on. But one of the things in closing that I want to ask you is, um, how has your life really changed? Like since choosing yourself without apology, like without that guilt,
Mm-hmm.
how does it feel to walk freely in who you authentically are? Like, I know we talked about the thing with your kids, but just like as a person, like, how does it feel to truly be authentically you? Because it's funny because I mean, I didn't really know that this was an issue for you when I knew you.
Yeah.
And I've always thought you were just the most
Oh,
kind-hearted
so
person.
nice.
You're like literally one of the most kind-hearted people that I've ever met. So that's always been a part of who you are. But
Mm.
knowing now that like that's something you were dealing with, like how does it feel to just be authentically you?
It feels so good. It really does. I think it feels very light and very genuine. And I just feel like um, I like myself so much more, which like I liked myself before, but I like love who I am right now. And I really love, there's such deeper connection, even like with my husband. Because even with him, I was like hiding needs and hiding how I actually felt and like was sort of manipulating the relationships. There's like so much freedom and connection with my husband in my friendships. I think I have dropped a lot of my performance, which I feel like gets back so much time and energy. Like I feel okay to say that I'm not okay. And the performance, the weight of that performance taken off of you feels so light and so good. And it
Mhm.
just feels very honest to show up and just say like what you think, what you feel without feeling this fear of hiding.
Yeah.
And the contentment and security you feel from knowing that, like, I don't need to perform. I don't always have to be nice. It's actually not my job to take care of these like grown-ups and make sure that they feel great. Feels so much lighter and so much more freeing. It's lovely. It's changed every aspect of my life. I think, like, even in work, being able to say no or like show up differently, ask for I think people pleasers are probably underpaid. So like ask for
Mm.
raises and like ask for things that you need or that would make your job easier for you to do, or because we never want the conflict or the discomfort of like asking for what we want.
Yeah,
So even that has changed. It's
I love that.
great.
That's awesome.
Amazing.
Do you
Yeah, it's
have
great.
anything, Ash, in closing?
No, I mean, maybe just, how can our listeners connect with you or learn more from you after
Yes.
they hear from you? I'm sure they'll want to.
I
So
love it. So you can, I'm on Instagram just at Adrienne Himmelwright. And I also have a website at adriennehimmelwright.com. So you can look up, I just have like resources on there. I have a freebie on there that goes through like a bunch of people pleaser questions, how to set boundaries. I give boundary examples in there. So if you go on there and just put your email address in, it'll send you the freebie. Um, so yeah, that's how you can reach out with me.
great. Thank you so much. This has
Yeah,
been awesome. You've had a lot of like good nuggets in here that have got me thinking, you know what I mean, to
awesome.
take into my own life and just shifted my perspective on some things. So I think it's really helpful. I appreciate you taking the
I
time
love it. Yeah, it's been so
to
fun.
be
Thanks for
here for
having
us.
me.
Yes, this was so good. All right. Well, we want to remind you guys that you can expect to hear from Ashley and I every other week, but we do have some other special guests that are going to be coming up too. So stay tuned. And as always, we tell them, what do we say? Like,
Smash the
share,
like button.
subscribe, smash the like button. We try to act like our kids so that we
Yeah.
can, we want to get this info out to as many women as we can because that's really what our passion is. It's empowering women to live their best life. So we
Mm,
hope that you're
Yes.
getting that from this podcast.
Thank you
love
guys.
it.
All right,
Thanks,
bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.